All right, guys, welcome back. Smallie Chaser channel, Upper Potomac River update. Awesome recap, man. Awesome event going down this last weekend in the Smallie Chaser River Bassin series. And also we had ICAST last week. So there was a lot going on in the fishing, definitely in the regional fishing world anyway, with also two other events on the Upper Potomac on Saturday when chasers were out on the river as well. Big shout out to those guys as well. Tough conditions for the Upper Potomac in the summertime. Pretty much just like last summer, really low water, pretty much everywhere, even upriver, well above Harpers Ferry, Williamsport, above Dam 4. Definitely challenging, but it also brings out, I think, a lot of the best in a lot of the anglers, especially in our community. I think that's why a lot of the anglers, that specifically fish for smallmouth, that specifically fish in rivers, probably have a little bit more of a handle on it than the other series that was fishing the same day. Most of those guys fish for largemouth bass. There's some good guys. There's some good guys in there, good Smallie chasers in that group as well. And it was just really interesting to kind of like behind the scenes talk about who, Friday night up at Harpers Ferry Brewery, kind of like talking about like who really we thought was going to take this event in our series as well as the MBKBA series that was fishing downriver. Most of those guys are fishing well downriver from where we were. Just that our boundaries were not set up the same. So a lot of our guys were further upriver, well above Point of Rocks, all the way up to Williamsport and beyond. And then the NBKBA series, from what I understand, and so guys that reached out to me, most of those guys, and some of our guys saw some of those guys were well below the Monocacy and down towards Algonquin. So Edwards Ferry area, I think, had a lot of those anglers. That obviously that was in bounds as well for us. Like our boundaries were Hancock all the way down to Rivers Bend, which is in Virginia, before you fall to the Great Falls. So it was a lot of water available for everybody to fish in the Upper Potomac event, and rightfully so, because of how challenging it was. The creeks are really low, hadn't had a lot of rain at all. We just come off 300-degree days. Water was well below 2 feet. And so you had to do a lot. And a lot of the guys, I think, hopefully they'll pop on here in a few minutes. We'll bring on some of the guys from the event. We'll speak to like these, quite a bit of guys in the series had fished multiple days leading up to this event. And those were the anglers that tended to do well, at least in our event, that really went and fished 3 or 4 different areas during pre-fishing. And then dialed in where they were going to fish on Saturday. So it'll be really interesting to see. Obviously, the fishing's been real. I mean, obviously, the fishing has not been as tough as a lot of people have, like, at least in my area where I live, people have reported it being very tough and there being a drought. There's not a drought. This is the same. The river has been like this for 3 years in a row now. During the summertime, from really the 4th of July until about early August, where the river has just been at 2 feet. Even Edwards Ferry today is at like less than 2. I think it's like a 2.25. That's very, rare for Edwards Ferry. It's usually this time of year, it's usually 4 feet. But the rest of the river, like Point of Rocks and further down below, are at the same levels we had last year, 2 feet or less. Whether you're talking Point of Rocks, whether you're talking White's Ferry, whether you're talking, further down river to Seneca Landing, which is a little bit more deeper water above Old Dam 2, but below Old Dam 2, all the way down to Little Falls is 1.5 feet. I mean, it's 1.5 feet today. And so it hadn't really changed much. We got a little bit of rain in. It's about the same amount of rain this week as we got last week. Hadn't really moved the needle. So a lot of these guys, had to deal with that elements. A lot of people covered a lot of water that I've talked to. And so that's kind of what chasing's all about. being able to get out of your kayak, having to drag your kayak, finding some areas. So it's just always really, really, really interesting to hear different people's takes, and also like different people, had a totally mindset on where they were going to go to fish, given the boundaries, right? Sets up like 2 or 3 different rivers. It really does. As far when you get above our base camp area, which was Harpers Ferry, and you go further up all the way to Hancock, where our boundary was, and beyond to like Paw Paw, places like that, river, it might as well be a different river than Pointer Rocks down to Little Falls. In river composition and rock density and grass, it's just different. But really, really, the river, really, I love the river. It's my home, because it can set up to varying strengths. And I say this to people a lot, reach out to me, is it's not the Shenandoah. Okay. They're totally different, like in my opinion. I think there's just far more dimensions to the Potomac on where you can go. And these fish 2 or 3 days ahead of the event, hitting 3 or 4 different sections, could probably attest to that. Because they are different. Even the sections are different. And so in trying to get that dialed in with, like I said, 18 to 20 guys from our series, 40 or so guys from the NVKVA series, then a boating series up above, Harpers Ferry. I mean, there's quite a few people on the river that day, and when you're talking about kind of skinny water, that makes things, pretty tight. As far as cast goes last week, missed the cast, first time, wouldn't you know it, it's a great smallmouth, at least bait wise. Not so sure kayak wise. Bait wise. It was a great, and a couple of that stuff is kind of sent to me. I did get a dose a little early eye cast from our friends at Raid. Secret's not secret, worst kept secret in fishing. Okay. The professional fishing. I'll be heading down to Richmond this weekend, the PFL event on the James River. And I imagine I will see a ton of the fish roller right here. Okay. The fish roller, it's been around a while, but now that everyone's coming back to finesse fishing, which is what most of the people in our series love to do, other than a couple of the power guys like Troy Wines. There's a couple power guys, but a lot of guys really like finesse tubes, fishing, at least in our community. And it's really interesting to see the ebb and flow of where the industry moves, because they're moving back to the forward-facing sonar, the minnows, the jig heads, everything that we pretty much have been using forever, whether BFS or not, coming back to us. It was really good to see, and start to see some of these baits, and a couple of the mooch minnow and a couple things that I've been able to try out. And but I've been throwing the Raid for a while. But it's just really interesting to see now, like, it's been being on the Pro Tour for a while, and people have been catching a lot of bass, both largemouth and smallmouth, on the fish roller. So Raid's coming out. It's probably on pre-order already on Tackle Warehouse or a place like that, if you want to check it out. But they're coming out with the 5-inch. This is the 4-inch. I've only been using the 4-inch sand, and the 4-inch Pearl Wasagi. That's my favorite, actually. But obviously you can see the coloration on that. Okay, it's perfect for your river systems. Okay, right size bait fish. Perfect. And you can check out that. That's just one of the ones that's in the newsletter for here, I'll pull that up for the rundown on iCast for smallmouth baits, stuff to check out. And we also, our friends, our supporting partners, Fish Hog, were at iCast this year. So kind of talk with Chris a little bit today about iCast and, what he saw at iCast and what's the evolution happening with Fish Hog and Fish Hog of baits coming out. So we'll definitely, introduce introduce those coming up here. We'll get Chris on a spotlight, supporting partner spot, and he can walk through the new baits that they got coming out. So I think that'll be awesome, and we're going to do that now and through the fall, heading into next year with all of our supporting partners. It's a perfect time at the end of the summer and going into the fall. Most of the tournaments die down for most series, and people can kind of like they can just kind of absorb more information out there. And they set up for next year. Should be a QR code right there. That'll take you to the nutter that, in my opinion, of course, it's not all of them, but in my opinion, some of the baits that were sent to me, you can take a look at and kind of see, and then, just kind of go and tackle warehouse or see if they're going to get them in. Some of them may not get them initially. It may be September before some tackle shops get a lot of these baits in, but you can bet Crush City, Great Lakes Finesse, those brands are most likely going to be at your tackle shop sooner than later. Some of the other ones, that I like to utilize, and which is why we're doing what we're doing with Japan, with Japanese baits, the JDM baits, stuff like the Raid. These are like a lot harder. These are a lot harder. These, I can tell you right now, are probably sold out on every site after that St. Clair event. Just because the minnows are the deal. They're the real deal again. And with forward-facing sonar. So everybody's buying up all those fish rollers. I got size 3, 4s. I got probably half a dozen, maybe 8 packs. So if somebody, the fish rollers out, local to the DMV area, just hit me up. Or if anybody in the series wants to try them out, I'll shoot it to you in the mail. And you can give it a go. I love them. I think they're great. I think in times like this last weekend on the Upper Potomac, when your smallies are finicky and they want something, a little bit smaller, a little bit, more realistic. I don't think you're going to get more realistic than that. Okay. And these displace in the water really, really uniquely. So Upper Potomac recap for Saturday, July 20th. Had a blast. Got to meet a bunch of people and see people that I haven't seen in a while. I really like getting in on Friday. The people at Harpers Ferry Center, awesome. Our sponsors are awesome, providing that ability, plus the meetup on Friday night. Big shout out to Chris Riley, who fishes with us with Blessed Fishing, Soft Plastics, for Friday night, taking care of the pizza, taking care of everything. Us, the guys that were up on the mountain on Friday night, contributed to our series as well. As well as a lot of other supporting partners for this event. We had the ability to offer a lot more, and then probably overkill. I had some people send me some messages like but that's, we got great supporting partners that want to have fun with these events. The people buy their baits, which is a lot of people in our community. We've done a really, really great buying a lot of custom baits from local producers in the area, in our region, especially. It's to support the small, independent custom on coming up, supporting our custom guys. So that are really making baits. When I'm talking about that, it's so funny. Like with obviously you're not all of the. It's great that got to go down there, but iCast isn't really like for everybody. Like in terms of in the industry, it's very, very expensive to go to that trade show. So a lot of the custom guys don't really get a platform at iCast to really show everything they have. I can tell you right now, in the ways that I've seen that have been provided to me pre-iCast, and then the stuff coming out of iCast, I think it's we had Daniel on about 2 months ago, which is one of our partners from Bent Rod Fishing, and his bait, I'm telling you, matches up with every single one of these name brand knowns and is better than a lot of them. If you're mid-strolling, if you're a hover stroller guy, if that's something you're getting into, and that's where the forward-facing sonar market is moving to, right? If you saw everything at ICAST, everything was like, jig head and a minnow and how it shows up on forward-facing sonar and all that. And Dan's been on this. All those of us that have had his baits have just been smashing them. Or the guys I've given them to for large in my lake down the road, Finicky Lake. It's a big basser in that lake. But a lot of people skunk at that lake. It's a hard to fish, but there are big catching fish for them because it's right in that, that hover strolling mindset. So it's great to have supporting partners that are like hitting it out of the park, with their baits. But we're going to get into Upper Potomac. I'm going to bring some of the guys in. We got some guys in the green room. Looks like we got the division winners. So that's awesome. So we got Dara, of course. We got the team division. Local to me, on Friday night on picking to finish, really in the Potomac River event, and then on our team series. But one thing I will say about this event had the most new chasers fishing for the first time than any of our other events. Our events have been in 25, and it's been, pretty consistent in terms of who's participating in our events, except for this event. So this event, we had 5 or 6 new people fish, which is what it's all about, which is really great. And it's even awesome at the same time when we have supporting partners sponsoring new chasers in new chase us in not only division, he also finished in 3rd place individual event, and he also won new chaser best limit. And so he kind of hit the trifecta, in that regard. And that's what it's about. It's about everybody having an opportunity, everybody to get out there and fun, celebrate each other and the rivers that we're fishing, and all that. So let's bring some of the guys in here. Let me clear this up a little bit. And we can slide some of the guys in, and we can kind of get into the Potomac and the things that these guys saw in the river that day. Like I said, we were looking at these, and then a little bit in the a little bit of rain in the evening, night heading in. Beautiful. At 7 o'clock on Friday night, I kind of felt like guys were just going to knock it out of the park because it was beautiful and the temperature dropped. It was nice. It was mild. It wasn't hot. And doing that overnight temperature was a little bit lower than it had been all week going into the event. So I was really, really excited to get this in here. I'm going to pop Mr. Shane Crawford up in. See if that's going to work. Shane, I'm trying to get this thing off the screen first, but we'll see what happens. There we go. Doesn't want to pop last time. Should pop you in. Or not. Technology. It's great. When you need a 12-year-old. That's what I always say in my house. You'd figure this stuff out. Maybe I can park. See if I can get Mark and Shane in here. There we go. Sorry about that lag. Shane, you're first at some point. You're highlighted. I don't know why it's not popping in.
I think it looks like I'm in here. I think.
Clearly, the stream does not like us tonight. I don't know what's going on outside. But if they pop in here in the next minute, I don't know what that's all about. Oh! This is like me fishing, like missing like fish after fish. I think I can hear guys, but you guys aren't. We'll see what happens. Can you guys hear me? I can hear this.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Clark, can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you, but probably pop up.
I can hear you.
I can't tell. There we go. I can't tell if we're having thunderstorms roll through the Potomac River like we did last night or not, because I'm all the way downstairs. But it'll be interesting to see. Good to see both you guys. Congratulations on your team win in the team division.
Thank you.
That was freaking awesome. Congratulations to Shane, obviously. Shane finished in second place on Saturday, but also took over the points lead in the Angler of the Year race. So that's freaking awesome. So congratulations. What you guys, Shane, you've been on before, so I'm going to let Clark go first. Clark's first time, on the live stream, first time fishing with us. Clark, introduce yourself, tell us a little about you, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm Clark. I grew up in is friends with Shane here in Lovettsville. We've been fishing the river since we were kids, so got pretty into it probably about 5 years ago, and we just do our thing out there on a weekly basis. So
yeah, I think that was the one, you talk a little bit about, you guys fish pretty much every week on this river, like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I talk a little bit, and Shane, I know you can dial in too, because you fish a lot of other rivers too. It's a little bit different. I think a lot of people that came to the event who had never fished. There was half the field that never fished this river before.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of blew them away a little bit.
Yeah. I think kind of going into it, I kind of figured the way it was fishing, it was going to be hard if you didn't have any previous knowledge going in. It's going to be tough because it was tough. Honestly, it was tough because I kept just hitting spot after spot and just nothing. Really.
Yeah, we had, I think it was the weekend before, we were only out for 5 hours each day, but I think we put up I put up 76 and then 79 one night. It was man, I was telling Shane, I was I don't know, I don't even know if we'll break 80. It's been rough, but the clouds rolled in and everything kind of changed it up for the better for us for that morning. So I was very happy with the way the river played actually for what we do. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I took a look at it on Friday night when we were up on the mountain at Harpers Ferry, and or at least the brewery anyway, not really Harpers Ferry, but Harpers Ferry Brewing. And I was like, guys, you should just go down and start fishing now, because it was
yeah.
that's what I was experiencing the 2 weeks prior to going up to the event. It was you could go out in the morning and catch 15 or 20 smallmouth, and then it would just shut down, and then you basically could go hours and hours and hours without getting a bite. And so then you just transition to going back at 6:30 and fishing until 8 or 8:30, and that was the best fishing time, because of 95 to 100 degree weather. The water temperatures was in the 90s last week. So that was my concern. Was I was just kind of man, I figured everybody, especially you guys, and it's the guys that I knew who fished the Potomac a lot, we're going to catch a lot of fish. I mean, that's not a problem. You know what I mean? It's catching the size, right? It's not, most people call me up after events and they're like, guys didn't catch as many as I thought based on the turning X. And I was like, that's because they don't log all the 45, 12-inch fish that they caught.
Yeah.
So speak of that a little bit on how your day went, just numbers wise, and kind of culling through, and moving through the river.
You want to start, Shane?
Yeah, I can. Like the first cast in the morning, I got bit, but just didn't work out. It wasn't a big fish, but again, the section I was in, they're kind of like in spots. There were certain little spots,
Right.
and I kept rolling through them and just catching these little 10 to 12 inchers, which I was taking pictures of, but I was like, I need to find some better fish, and just couldn't find them until like 8 o'clock. Is when I caught that 17 and a quarter, and it was kind of tough. Again, just tough to find something above like 12 inches for a while. And once I got out of that one area, normally I find 2 to 3 within probably 15 to 17 inches. I only had the one, so it was like, this is going to be tough to.
Right. Did you start in a section that you're like, you pretty much fish a lot in your, in terms of like, and you hit that even with the water being down?
Yeah. Cause I, like that section, I'm like real familiar with how it all lays out. Cause I've obviously fished it when it's up in the spring, and then fished it, leading up to the event.
Right.
And just even fishing it over the years, just you have like the history of where those fish usually set up, and just that area, they weren't there.
Clark, did you guys launch together, or did you guys fish different sections?
No, well, we overlapped, but we didn't fish the exact same stuff. Like I launched a good ways down from him, and then he fit. So like basically, I launched at one spot, he launched at another spot, a handful of miles upriver, and I fished down through, and then he refished stuff that I fished in the morning. It's kind of how he rolled with it.
Yeah. It was like, I think it was like probably 4 or 5 hours since you had fished it, so stuff definitely could have moved in. It wasn't like I was fishing directly behind you.
Yeah, when we fish the river together, we have like a certain, we say like my spot, and he's kind of got his half with his holes, and I got my half with my holes, and it gets a little testy sometimes if if the bite isn't what one of us expected rolling out on the river that day, and we got to adjust. And maybe I'm a little ahead of him, and I go and fish a couple of his spots, and then maybe he fishes some of my spots. It can get a little heated out there sometimes, but we keep it cordial.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, because I looked at it and I was like, when your guys' fish started, especially on the team side, when your fish started coming in, I saw like in the morning, it's so awesome, like from a tournament director perspective sometimes, because you can just kind of see like how the catch changes throughout the fishery. You know what I mean? Like Shane, you were saying, like Chris Riley put in a fish like right at like 6:05. Like I was like okay, it's on, right? Like 6:05, 6:08, 6:09. We started getting fish in smaller, like in that 12 to 14 range. They were smaller. But I was like, okay, like this is what's going to happen. And then that was all. And like, most of the fish were probably between Dargans and Pointer Rock in our series. Like predominantly, most of the fish were caught. That's a pretty big stretch for those who aren't familiar. And like, it was sort of like downriver started to catch fish early, but then by the afternoon, and then towards the end of it was the upriver. It was the guys fishing that were upriver to catch in, some 18s, 19s, in that 3. I think you had a mean after like 2 o'clock, right? Like it just kind of flipped a little bit, and just seeing that change,
within
in the fishery was like really cool.
Within like the last hour and a half, I caught.
Yeah.
Not a 19, yeah.
You had a 17 at like 2:45, and then you had a 19 at like 3 something.
Yeah, and then I caught 2 17s within 20 minutes of each other, and then I caught the 19, all within an hour time frame.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and it was all that late after. And this is what I always tell people: reach out to me on the nights after our event or on Sunday, and I'm like, I keep telling you guys, just extend your event to 4 o'clock, like because this is what's happened all season long in our series is 18s, 19s, and a bunch of rotations this year are all after 2:00. They're between 2 and 4:00.
Mhm.
Like it's like, which is like I'm like I get it when people have like award ceremonies and these bigger trails have these award ceremonies and have people come to it. Why they have to get off the water, a little earlier, but it just seems like, especially for places like the Potomac, you're leaving a lot of fish on, like, you know what I mean? And it showed. And Chris just popping this. Good evening, sir. Chris had his 19s and 18s were in the morning. Like they were in like 10 o'clock in the morning. So it was just kind of it was just kind of watching them all come in. It was a different vibe, But go ahead, Chris. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
All right.
We got you. You're good. There you go.
All right. Good deal.
Good deal.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Good.
We are doing great. We're just getting into it a little bit, just talking about the conditions. You guys fish different sections for the most part. So you could chime in, in terms of what you saw, on Saturday and what your experience was. Obviously it seemed like you got on them pretty good in the morning and kind of like kept that number one spot throughout all day long. I think you called a couple fish, early morning, and then kind of stayed in that number one spot for almost virtually the entire event, I think.
Yeah, it started off kind of slow. Pre-fishing Friday, I got to that dam around 4:00. Threw that plopper in there. First cast, boom, blew up, broke me off. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm done. I'll come back tomorrow morning. And it didn't want nothing to do with the plopper first thing in the morning. Switched over to a bladed bait, and it was just lights out. It's no big secret or anything like that. It was just they were in that boil of the dam, and they just could not stay off that jackhammer.
Right.
It was crazy.
I knew, like, you were open, you were open about what your plan was on Friday night, and I just kind of played it. I just kind of played it close to because I was like, I knew that's one of my favorite places. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's a little further upriver for me. I'm more downriver, but that's one of my favorites, especially for walleye. That's one of my favorite places to go. And so I like that dam. And I was like thinking that was going to be a spot like that, I was like, okay. I was like, it's probably going to have 4 or 5 guys on that spot. It's a pretty spot. Shane, you probably attest to that. And Clark, it's a pretty known hole, so to speak.
Yeah.
For the upper river, upper Potomac River. So and when you said after the event you were the only one there, I was just like, I was like, I did not get that. I was surprised.
Yeah, it shocked me. It definitely shocked me.
It's a little further up. It is. It's distance wise and plus access for people who don't know, and and like I said, you pre-fished, so you were well aware, of access and how to get in there and pretty quick, and get on them. But yeah, I that, when I saw you, knowing that, kind of thinking, because, I didn't know, whether or not that's really where you were going to go or not, because you shared it. You know what I mean? I was kind of like, uh-oh.
Right.
Could be some poker being played. And then I was like, when I scored your first fish, I was like, oh, no, he's really there. Okay, that's where he's going. And
the quality of fish I saw pre-fishing, it was crazy. Yeah. It was
there's a lot
crazy. There was just big smallies everywhere.
Yeah. It's known that area. Shane, Clark, you guys probably have fished up that way. It's a little further, obviously, than, fishing right after work or whatever, because you guys both have real good access, really close to the river where you guys are. But I just think this during the summer, it gets in these conditions, they just there, I think, and they can't go any further. You know what I mean? It's oxygenated water. 2 feet of water. For the most part, most of the river was kind of in that 2 feet or less. I would go where there's the most oxygen, you know what I mean? And clearer water. And so I was shocked that you were the only one there.
Yeah, I told Shane pretty early on, or I think I called him around like 11. I was like, man, we're fighting for second today. Like, this guy's got 92, and like on the Potomac 90-inch day, I call it like a trophy day. Like, if you go out there and you catch 90 inches, you did pretty good. Like, you did really good. So I called him. I was like, I don't think I'm on 90 inches today, but we're gonna fight it out and see who can take second here.
Yeah, I was not expecting it. Not at all.
I kind of didn't have that feeling, only because I have the luxury of scoring meeting you and judging your fish, but I have the luxury of having the back end to kind of knowing, you know what I mean? So I know like guys that fish the Potomac, and Shane's one of them, in other events, whether it's monthlies or summer chase or whatever. So I was always like, okay, like I'm waiting. It was like Chris is out there, he's stretching it out. He called another, like when he broke 90 inches, I was like, okay, someone's gonna have to get a citation here in the last period 3, right? It was like, because he kind of stretched, you know what I mean? Stretched from everybody. But I still never thought like that Shane and a couple of the other guys wouldn't like, get to like 90, like get up there, because I know they know the river really well. And I've scored plenty of their citation fish from the river. So, that was what I was expecting. I didn't expect not to have a citation scored in the event. I thought like, based on that weather that we might get a few because of that weather change, I mean, Chris, you fished, I think you fished Tuesday, Wednesday. I know you fished Friday.
Yeah.
So like,
that was my first time up there.
Yeah. On the water difference between say Wednesday and Saturday, how would you describe it? Like
Wednesday, I found all the big fish up in like creek. In the creeks.
Right.
That's where I found all the big fish earlier in the week. Then Friday, I mean, they were still in there, but the size wasn't there.
Right. And they weren't there
just on randomly looking at Google Maps. I found that dam and I figured I'd go check it out.
There you go.
Yep.
Just dumb luck.
I mean, because some of the guys went up the creeks. I was surprised because I had been up the week before and Monday of the week of the event, and there was like 6 inches of water in the creeks that I'll usually go in when there's like 2 feet. Like if the river's at 4, so 3.5 to 4.5 feet, those creeks usually have about 1.5 feet or a foot, or you know what I mean. And they'll go, there'll be a pathway for them to get up in those creeks. But like on Monday, these creeks were like either dry or like 6 inches, 7 inches of water. And I was like, you can't even you can't even get back up into the aqueduct and in that creek. I didn't go all the way up to Williamsport. That's because that's a haul for me for up there. But I mean, that was the one thing I kind of felt like with the river being down, it was just kind of like it kind of took the creeks out of the mix.
Oh, I agree with that. But then that one creek,
Shane,
I can never say the name. Up there by Williamsport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we call it the
like
Cano, man. So like, I mean, it's like, yeah.
The Cano? Okay, that works.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If
there
you can't
good fish
pronounce
up in there.
You can't pronounce the indigenous names on the Potomac watershed, we always give them different. You know what I mean? Like Goose Creek. Goose Creek's the easiest one, but it wasn't always called Goose Creek. So someone changed that name. You know what I mean? And everything else is, it's definitely got a history to it in terms of that. I was surprised. I don't think we had a single fish. It doesn't mean no one fished there, but I don't think we had a single scoreable fish in the Monocacy. And that surprised me because the last 2-3 weeks, really, all the end of June and July, like 4th of July weekend, I mean, the Monocacy's really, really been kicking out some really, really nice bass. And so, and I thought like if people paid attention to any of the groups or kind of any of that stuff, and where, you know, that there at least would be one or two guys that would fish the Monocacy and just float all the way down. But we didn't score a single bass there. So that was one of the bigger surprises. And I think I think in the other series, that's where it was won. Was in the Monocacy, or right at the mouth of the Monocacy and the confluence. So that was kind of, you know, that was kind of surprised. So you went with a jackhammer. So the jackhammer wins another event. I mean, so that, I mean,
Yes,
that thing is just like, yeah, that is that the Zenith or the Evergreen variety?
It's the Evergreen.
Yeah,
It's the actual jackhammer.
God, he didn't want to tell you all that. But yeah, that's what I don't throw the Z-Man. I have all Evergreen. I'm a JDM guy, so I have the Evergreen stuff. I just think their colors are better. Their colors are different, and more suitable. That doesn't mean you can't catch fish, obviously, with the Z-Man. Of course you can. But that's pretty awesome. So what you're saying, you want to talk about any bait or any like presentation? You want to reveal any juice? I know you're like pushing to win the summer chase. You know, you might not want to want to talk about too many hot baits right now. But you know, you can share.
I can give away secrets.
You know, or lie like the pros do. Like, you know, like down at ICAST, it's just like you're like, you know, I had like, it's a funny story. I had like two guys call me, and from the co-angling community, and they were just like, yeah, he doesn't throw. Like, no, that's not even okay. Yeah, maybe once in a while when I was in the boat with him, he threw that. When I was he's not throwing that. Like, I'm like, okay. I mean, so you can either reveal the juice or you can kind of tell lies. It's up to you. You can go ahead.
No, I mean, I throw a lot of top water, and I started throwing. I used to obviously throw buzz baits growing up, and then I got to throwing the whopper plopper, and then that kind of, I don't know, just seemed to not. The fish seemed to be almost educated to it. The whopper plopper, the way they would hit it. So I kind of went back to a buzz bait and just seemed to at least have a much better hookup ratio too with a buzz bait. So.
Yeah, it's, you know, you guys, Clark, you obviously first time fishing the river. I mean, comes back because he did really, really well on that river. I think he's got it. He's got it dialed in to get him some citations. I know Chris doesn't call it a citation yet, so he should come back and fish with you guys, because I know you guys will put him on fish for his citation. But yeah, I mean, crazy river, like, you know, it's amazing from day to day. Fish it as much, Shane, as I know you 3-4 times a week. A lot of times it can be completely different. The buzz bait can be absolutely straight fire one day, and then the next day it's like dead. Like, you know what I mean? And they want a jackhammer, or they want a Ned rig one day, and then because like I said, 3-4 times a week, especially in the spring, you know, because it's so close. Drop the girls off at school, hit the river, and spend 3-4 hours in the morning on the river. And it's like every day you're like, it's kind of like as the year goes by, you know, and my experience of living up here for the last 4 or 5 years is like I'm taking more and more baits with me now than I ever have in the past anywhere, because it's like, yeah, I know all of these work, but it's just a matter of what's going to work. You know what I mean? Because like you said, like that buzz bait was working, you know, like fire a week and a half ago. And then once it got to be like 100 degrees, it just seemed, for me anyway, it just seemed to shut completely down. You know, and the whopper popper's been like that for me for like a year. I almost don't even throw it anymore. I just think that the fish in the upper Potomac are like conditioned to that noise. Throw Jack's Lake Edge whopper, his flat side, because it's a totally different noise, and they do like that because I think it's different. It's more shallow in the profile, and it just makes a different, more of a subtle noise than the plopper does, or the Chapo, which is so loud. You know what I mean? That works for me, but like the standard river to sea just hasn't, you know. Troy will argue with me. I'm sure Troy probably caught a fish or two on Saturday on the whopper plopper, because he loves throwing that thing along with his spinner bait. But
I mean, that's what I
Yeah.
locked that thing in my hand on Saturday, and that's what I threw all day. I mean, I was throwing up the fish. My bigger fish were sitting up in like 6 inches of water, 10 inches of water, something like that. And you see them chase out, wake out at it, and, eat it pretty good. And so that's what I did. But for me, I think it's a thing when I can start hearing the cicadas in the trees around here, like right now, like late July, August, September, that's when that whopper plopper really turns on, and it they eat it. But then sometimes earlier in this, or like late spring, like May, June, I can't get them to eat it, and it's just not working until basically now.
yeah, I was throwing the 2-way, which is another raid product. It's just like for just dropping it right underneath those trees and just letting it sit on top. It's not a plopper. I mean, it's just freaking finesse, and then just twitch it and jerk it. And like when those cicadas are like all doing their thing, doesn't matter whether they're periodic or the annual cicada, they're always there. Like, that this time of year, the shade right in that area like that. I was telling Adam White, it was right in that line of shade to the sun, like is kind of like coming from the shade. And then for me, it was like, as you come out of the shade, kept bringing it back to you in your retrieve and you're coming into the sun. It was like, as soon as it changed over to that sunlight, it was like pop, like it was like, and so, and it was almost like you're saying with the plopper, it's almost like you had to draw them out of that 6 inches. You had to draw them out a little bit from where they were to get bit. So, that's awesome. Chris, you caught all your fish on the jackhammer?
Yes, sir.
Everyone. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. So Chris finished the event. For guys who haven't looked at it, I know most of our guys have looked at it on Tourney X. Chris Johnson finished in first place, 92.75 inches. Shane followed up in second place. First place sponsored by Power Cream, by the way. Chris already got his battery. That's the 8th battery of the season that we've given away. So I'm really happy that we work with the folks at Power Cream. Shane Crawford in second, obviously. Finished in third. And with those guys, because they're local, they ain't local enough to me. So you had Yak Rods for Shane, and the Hard Turn sponsored our third place. So you get a Hard Turn fishing swim bait. These swim baits are pretty. You're going to catch me, Clark. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you, I saw a lot of the ICAST stuff, and I was just kind of like, okay. Like, actually, they're not, Hard Turn's not be at ICAST, but because they're a small local family bait concern, but their swim baits are pretty sweet, and most people don't think you can catch smallies on swim baits. It's not true.
Oh,
you can catch smallmouth.
You can,
especially hard bait. Like, I know people are like, oh yeah, paddle tail, plastic swim. Like, no, I'm talking hard bait. Yes, you can.
No, they play.
And so we also got as like a sport. Yeah. Now, are any of you guys going to that event this weekend? No.
I'm heading down to the New tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Chris, I'm going to share. Hold on. I don't know if I can share it when I got 4 guys on the screen. I got a QR code. I'm going to put it on at the end of this stream. It's for Tri River Kayaks here, right to Tourney X, and it'll show you the July 27th event that Chris's series. Chris has got, he runs a little great series. They've got an event on Saturday on the New River you guys want to check out. I know there's a lot of guys in the summer chase that are fishing the New River, so there's no reason you shouldn't go ahead and fish Chris's series and get on some smallies in the summer chase down there. I know Tyler today dropped a 21.5 and a 20.5 on the board in the summer series. Yeah. I was like, where'd that come? Like, I'm sure he wanted that on the Upper Potomac. Okay. Cause I think he finished like 60, 65 inches. He was disappointed. But it was his first time coming to the Upper Potomac. But yeah, he knows those rivers down there really, really well. So hopefully we can get him to your event on Saturday and fish with you guys
Definitely.
as well. But yeah, it was just, anybody else got anything else they want to say?
I'm okay.
I'm
Shane,
good.
you're still running good. Shane, by the way, I know somebody asked me the other day. I couldn't remember what kayak you're running.
No, it's an SN, a 12T.
That's what I knew. It was one of those like.
Yeah.
And Chris is running a Crescent Shoal.
Yeah.
Clark, what do you run?
It's a redfish made by Native.
Nice.
Redfish 12.
Nice.
Yeah, it's probably like a 30-year-old kayak.
It don't matter, man. Like, I mean, some of those, man, I tell you, I will say this about like when you learn to get iCast and all that stuff. New canoes like this too sometimes. Sometimes like they have a really good, really great plan. They kind of like, I don't know, I'm trying to remember which one, but I think it ended up getting rebranded under, was it Liquids? Like another brand, the Maya, I think Maya or something like that. And so it's like, it doesn't matter how old they are, man. It's like sometimes it's like, some of these really good old platforms get passed by platforms. You know what I mean? Especially they're light. A lot of them are lighter.
Yeah,
Seems like kayaks now are getting heavier. And I'm not a big fan of that myself. Yeah. I mean, especially
I really like it.
Our river.
I just keep having to like every year at this point. It's so old that I have to plastic weld it pretty much every year on the back while I'm scraping over the rocks. And people give me a hard time, like, "Oh, you need to buy another one. You need to buy this and that." And I'm like, "Man, you know what they cost these days? Like, it's expensive. I'm upgrading. I'm not gonna buy the same thing again."
Right.
So we just patching it up and keep going.
I think Chris, you just upgraded to another Sholey, right?
Yeah, I tore my last one up on the Shenandoah. Ripped a hole in the bottom of it.
I swear to God.
Yeah, Journey Outdoors and Crescent Kayaks hooked me up with another one, so it's all good.
It's like, yeah, man. It's that river. It's just like, I don't know. Very people that haven't done something on the Shenandoah to their kayak.
Right.
It's just crazy. The river to death. I love the main stem to death, but the South Fork and the North Fork have never been very kind to me, so I'm a main stem guy for the Shenandoah. But yeah, I'm not surprised. But it'll be what kind of did you take a look at the water level river for Saturday yet?
It's coming down. It's like 278 right now, and falling.
Man. I guess they'll still be sitting on those ledges. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's what
I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, they'll be get caught up in there. That's the one thing about the Upper Potomac that kind of like, again, is so different than some of the other rivers that we fished in the series this far, is because there are ledges. Don't get me wrong, but it's not really as like ledge centric. It's more rock, right, Shane? It's more like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like rocks, like out all over, like, volcanic. That is like the new river where it's more ledges, ledge focused.
Mm-hmm.
But is Potomac still your favorite of all the rivers, because you fish it so much? Of all the rivers we fished this season, which is the one that like surprised you the most?
Oh, me?
Yeah, because you fish more than Clark's first. This is Chris's third event, I think.
Mm-hmm. I still like the new. Actually,
yeah,
I really enjoy fishing the new.
Yeah, I had to drop that on my wife the other day, and I was like, "No, I might have to look for a little like spot on the new river to buy." Because it's like,
man,
it's 4 hours. Could be some in traffic coming out of DMV. It could be like 4.5 hours to get down there sometimes. And I was just like, for a day of fishing, that's 4.5 and 4.5. That's a long day. I was like, it might be nice to have a new river. You know what I mean? Every time I go down there, other than like losing my shit the last time I was on that river, I always have a blast on that river. It's just so much different than
we talk about that. Yeah, we talk about that like about the Susquehanna because we go up there quite a bit too, and it's just because it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours for us, so it's like right at the edge of like almost too far to go up for like an evening, but
it's yeah, you need to run one up on the Susquehanna, man. That river is different. That's different than because we fished the Susquehanna, Potomac, and Shenandoah a bit, and that one, I mean, if you're talking about 90 inches on the Potomac, that's any day on the Susquehanna, and then like these guys are winning with 95, and like you're seeing some of the biggest.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I had a couple of my buddies. My dad was from PA. I grew up fishing. Not so much like when we would go back and see family, because my dad's from Lewisburg. So not so much the Maine, you know. I mean, I obviously in the last few years more of that Harrisburg area. You know what I mean? Up to like Selins Grove and Liverpool and all that stuff. You know, that's always gets like highlighted in events. But I fish like areas from Lewisburg on it, which is totally different. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
It's a lot more like, you know, between Shenandoah to me and Potomac than the main Susquehanna. But I mean, it's crazy. You know, numbers wise, I've always said numbers wise, you're going to go up there and you're going to catch 60, 70, 80, even. But it can be, you know, be interesting this weekend with Bassmaster up there. You know, again, they always seem to come this time of year, and I don't really think it's the best time of year to come.
No,
but Hobie would come in
there
the last weekend of July, the first weekend of August, and Bassmaster's kind of like repeat. Yeah, that's what like, you know, I guess then down. Yeah, they should. They tend to do like they stay south or Florida in February and March, or Santee Cooper and all that down there. But I mean, you know, they don't. I guess they don't think about coming to the Northeast, I guess you would call that, that early in the year. But I mean, Higgins get caught, man. Like, I mean, that's the time of year. We're in the fall, you know. At least for us, that's the best time to go up there is in the fall. Same with going down in the New River in the fall, like in October. It's lights out. You know, not uncommon to catch a citation. You know, when you go down there fishing in the fall. But yeah, I think we'll probably add it next season. You know, the more guys. It's just for right now. I think it's more of a we're close to it. You know what I mean? Closer to it, depending on where you want to go on. You know, you kind of wingo part of something. But most of the guys, that's a 6 hour, you know, 5 or 6 hour this season. So, you know, I think I'd like to add at least one event up there, you know, if we can get enough guys to go travel up and, you know, just to experience. A lot of guys haven't fished it. You know, it's just like the Potomac River. A lot of the guys that fish the New and the Shenandoah and the Dan and the Stanton that fish in the community, this is their first time fishing the Potomac River, and they've never fished Susquehanna, you know. So, I mean, it would be great for them to get up there to see that, you know, because I'm sure they hear everybody talking about it, right? You know, how epic a day you can have on that river. But
it's just the number of big fish. It's not even just that there's big fish. It's like the number of them. Because you can go a lot of places and catch big fish.
It's just like I mean, that's what I try to tell people. It's like every other river. If they have a really good, you know, if they don't have a bad spawn, right, or flooding like we've had in the Potomac in 18 that kind of wiped out a freaking like a whole 2 years of really wiped out 2 years of smallmouth spawn, right? Because it also wiped out that first year, you know, the ones that spawned in 17, it wiped them out, and then it wiped out the 18 fingerlings. So it was like we're kind of behind. We're about ready. Shane, out you could, or Shane Clark, you both could probably speak to this. We're about ready to pop off here in the next year. Like there are a lot more 20s getting caught down on the Potomac River, and we haven't had any flood. We've had high water, but we haven't had anything like even close to 18 in terms of a flood that's negatively impacting habitat. Like all the grass is coming back. You know what I mean? That stuff is all like, and these fish, you know, these classes now are going to be 1 year older. I mean, Shane you've caught probably what, 5 or 6 citations?
Yeah, in the series, I think I'm up to 8 for the year.
In the monthlies,
but I've caught
more. You might have caught 7 or 8. Next year, those fish are going to be 21 halves, 22s. Like, you know, unless idiots don't remove them from our fishery, and we both know that happens in our fishery, unfortunately. Or guys take these fish for some reason. And that's a shame. But
all right, guys, I'm gonna jump off here so I can get my butt down the road.
All right, man, good luck on your event. All right, you got to be safe. I hope you guys.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
You bet. And news the same way, man. There's so many citations getting caught that are 20 to 21, and it's just like, man, that could be the spot where the state record falls, like down there in the next year or two. You know,
I will be.
You know, at least the length wise. I don't know about the weight wise. You know, I don't know how long they've been tracking the length for the smallmouth record in terms of length. Obviously the weight's kind of withstood.
What is that record? The length record? What is it?
I think the longest one is a 23 and a half, I think. I think the longest length that at least that's one of the biologists did. You know?
Yeah,
so that we've gotten close. I mean, Troy caught a 23 and a quarter on the James River. I think it was the James River he caught that in. So it's like they're in. I mean, they're there. And I think another year or so we're gonna see a 24. We're gonna see a 24. Like,
I heard a rumor on a podcast a couple of years ago about a guy catching a 25 on the James, which, I mean, you never know if people talk, but
I mean, like, you know, I mean, they're only gonna go by if he registered it, right? Like if
of course,
submitted it, but either like the the angler recognition, but it would not surprise me. You know, it would not surprise me at all that someone did. I mean, you guys catching, like, weight wise, you hear, and I always try to do in my head what that length would be, everyone knows about, like, you see reports like up north, the largemouth on Cayuga that set that record in New York State. It's kind of like, I would never believe it like that if someone just told me that, you know what I mean? But once you see the fish and you see everything, you're like, wow. Because there's massive smallies in that place too, So
what those,
I just hope the state record. I think the state record's gonna fall.
You're not getting a clean comparison there with like length to weight, because I mean, we've seen fish that are 20 inches and over 5 pounds in the spring, and then that same fish, I caught one on the new a couple of years ago. It was 21, and it was 3 pounds 6 ounces in August. So, guys claiming, I caught a 5-pounder and this and that. It's like, maybe, but you had to catch it at the right time of year, because some of them fish just they get thin. I mean,
right. I mean, Shane, yours were thick. I mean, I was surprised how kind of like thick yours were on Saturday for almost August. You know what I mean? I mean, typically, there were some other ones on the board that were a lot. Obviously, you have the 18s and 19s, but they weren't nearly as fat as the ones you caught.
Yeah, the 117 I weighed it was like 2 pounds and 12 ounces or something. It was pretty heavy for a summer fish.
Yeah, I mean, just in the picture, they just looked like they were like, for a summer fish, it was like, man, and I was just kind of like, you never know. Like, it's just like you said, it's like sometimes you catch them and they're, Troy's caught a bunch that were 20s that were like crazy thin, and then a guy throws up an 18 and a half and it's like a football. You know what I mean? It's just so weird. I mean, and the rivers are all different, our river is completely different than the new river in terms of that. I just, and most people don't talk about the citation size in the upper Potomac, but I think there's a lot more there than people give the river credit for.
Oh,
You know,
they're in there. They're just, there's not quite as many. Like the Shenandoah, I think there's more in the Shenandoah than there are in the Potomac. But that river's got some massive fish. I didn't believe it until I saw it. But
yeah, I mean, and that to me, that river's always sectional. Like it's like I don't, like everyone to me, the South Fork's always been a numbers game. Like you can go down there and you'll catch a ton of fish, but you won't catch like an 18 or a 19. Then on the main stem, you may go out there and catch like a dozen fish, and 4 of them are 18s and 19s, and and maybe a 20. Like it's just I like that stretch of the main stem. I just think there's a lot more cover and a lot more grass and a lot more features, coming out of Maryland or coming out of Virginia, Loudon, and going into West Virginia than the South Fork. I mean, other people disagree, but I just have always found that stretch to have bigger fish, and so has the state. By when they do their testing and stuff, the main stem to outperform Fork and the North Fork. For density and size. That's why I've never really paid. I don't pay too much attention to that stuff a lot because they always rate the Upper Potomac way lower than I think what we probably see. When we're out there, like you guys catch a ton of fish. You get numbers, but it's like really like that seems low. But it all depends on where they survey. You know what I mean? Where they decide on any given time. And plus, sometimes they do these surveys in the early spring and not in the fall, which changes everything.
Yeah, our fish they move a lot, and you'll have an area where you'll be finding big fish and maybe even like a lot of fish, and then you can go I don't know, not even 200 yards downriver and it's dead, and then you'll go another 300 yards and there's fish again. So they'll kind of hang out for a week or two, and then they'll move. And I mean, they're not just everywhere on the Potomac. They're very location sensitive, it seems like.
Yeah, most people don't get that. Like they move, man. Like I try to tell people down in the sections that I fish all the time. I'm like, I tell people on the Maryland side, growing up in Virginia, it was completely different because I grew up on the other side in Loudon, and we only had Algonquin. It had just opened up when I was like 6. So that was everybody went to that park, right, to get access to the to the Potomac off Route 7 in that part of Loudoun County where I grew up. And then coming to Maryland, Maryland's got access for days, 8 different access points within 30 minutes, 40 minutes of my house on the Maryland side, to where one day I can launch at Swain, the next day I can launch at Pennyfield and Seneca Landing, and then go further up to find them. You know what I mean? Without having to launch at the same place and having to spend all day. You know what I mean? I can cut my down, and just kind of eliminate them section by section, in terms of that. So it's a lot easier on the Maryland side to do that than the Virginia side, because I don't think from Algonquin to you guys, Goose Creek, you can figure out a couple. It's pretty much Algonquin, then all the way up to you guys. On the other than Point of Rocks, I guess on the Virginia side, you could put in. But when I'm in my sections on the Virginia side, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virginia doesn't have the best access to the river. So we always have to go to Maryland to access.
Yeah, it's something they need to change. That's one thing I've never just, kind of understood. And maybe they don't because Maryland has access, but I mean, there's a shoreline on the Virginia side that fish launching from the Maryland. I just go across the river because that's where the grass is. There's no grass on my side of the river. It's all rock. It's from the canal and from all that, all the work, the construction, all the stuff that they've done for a century. There's just no, it's all rock. But then as you get your way to Middle River, and then when you get on the other side, because there is no access over there, you can't get to banks over there. It's all wildlife or refuge or whatever, right? With no access. A lot of people don't go on that side of the river, and fish it. And for me, that's where all the grass is. At least in that Pennyfield to Algonquin down to Swain section, which is the lower section of the Piedmont, That's where all the grass is. And they tend in the back, and the smallmouths tend to like do this like kind of move from the Maryland side to the Virginia side, and then back to the Maryland side. And a lot of times it's just like catching them when you catch them at the right time, in that move, during the week. That's when you get on them, like it, and so you kind of have to play that game, of figuring them out. Because I'm sure you guys will go to your section and you're scratching your head wondering where they're at, and then 2 or 3 days later,
some days you just float, however many miles, and you're just casting and casting and casting, and you just cover water just to find better fish. And then other days it's like you got to hang in the same area for a couple hours, just because that's where they're at. And if you leave, you're not gonna catch fish. So
yeah, it's amazing how many times that like you have to. Like, I talk to guys all the time too. It's like sometimes you just got to sit and wait. Like it's like waiting for them to come to you. Like I've had a guy tell me that. Like it's a 6 hour, 8 hours or whatever, but it's kind of like we know they're here. We know like if they're gonna come back here. Like, you know what I mean? Some point of the day, it's just what they do. And we fish the river as much as we all do. You kind of pick up on some of that, like, some of the areas of, sometimes you can't explain why it is a specific area or stretch of the river they gravitate to, because they don't look any different than any other stretch of the river. But they just do,
And it can be repeatable too. Like I tell Shane, like we talk about this, like those big fish they're not random. They'll come to the same areas like frequently, but like you might have 3 areas that are holding big fish, and you fish 2 of them one day and they're not holding a big fish, but the third one is, but then the next day, maybe the first one's holding big fish. So for whatever reason, they've got specific spots they like to go to, but they're not always there. But you kind of always got to fish them because you never know which one. So it's a whole game you play out there.
And the craziest thing about the Upper Potomac is like a lot of times in terms of them moving, and I try to explain this to people sometimes, and I think depending on where they fish, if they're used to fishing lakes, they totally don't get it. But some of it's like so seasonal too. Like in the fall, fish will be where you will never catch them in the summer. I've gone to places and absolutely cannot catch any fish, and then come September, October, that's where they are in droves. Like, you know what I mean? And they'll be there till about like early winter, and then they'll move somewhere else. And it's like they're not there in the spring and in the summer at all. Like it's like in terms of like good size dense, in terms of population density for like anything above like a 17 or an 18. They're just not there. Like it's like, and people will be like, "Oh, they're there. You're just not catching them." I'm like, "No, I don't think they're there." Like because
the
15s, the 14s, the 13s, and the 12s aren't there either. Like it's not like you're catching other smaller size fish. You're just not catching anything. And then you go down river a couple miles, or you go up river a couple miles, and it completely changes.
If you find one that's like 16 or so, that's kind of your area to hang around. Like you said with the size class, that's kind of your area to hang around and fish, because those are the bigger fish that usually when they get that size, they start to act a little different. But if you're only finding like your 10s, your 11s, your 12s, I mean, you might never say never, but odds are there's not big fish in the area, and you're going to want to go try and find a better bite before you hunker down on something.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just gonna be frustrated.
It always seems like when you could pull in, especially with the water level being what they are now, like everybody's seeing fish. You know what I mean? That the more fish that you're seeing together is when it's kind of like a signal to go ahead and move on, because it's like those fish are always like 12 to 14s, right? Like there'll be 10 or 12 of them together. And then you'll, when you're looking at like the 18s and the 19s, they're rarely ever with that, you know what I mean? That larger pack. It's usually like 3, like when I call them pods, but it's like where I fish, I'll see 3 18s together. Like they hang together and you can see them, but they're never in like big pods of like 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Those are all the smaller size fish. So a lot of times when I pull up and I pull out and I see that, I'm like, I mean, I can have fun and catch some fish if I'm, you know, in that kind of mood where I just want to catch fish. But if I'm looking to catch bigger fish, it's almost like just move on. Like, you know what I mean? And try and find other areas, usually deeper water, but a lot of times, you know, off a seam or whatever for some bigger fish. But it just always seems like, Shane, you had that. It seemed like that. I have that happen to me a lot because you caught those 3 fish within like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, and they're all pretty much the same year class or at least a year apart, right? They were all, I think that all of them were 17s, 18s, and 19s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, like you caught little fish in there, like they were all in that area. And I know how it plans out, and it's easy. I know when people message me, it's tons easier when you're just out there. You're out there for like 6 or 7 hours fun fishing. You're not in a tournament. You're not. You know what I mean. You're not competing against anybody. It's a totally different, obviously, environment. To be able to make decisions on that kind of stuff. You know, than it is on a Saturday when you're competing against 20 other people. You know, but, you know, I mean, they said on Friday night they thought there'd be the hometown jinx. And I was like, it didn't happen because both you guys are local to the Upper Potomac. So it really didn't happen in terms of finishing in second and third. You know, so that was really, really cool. But Clark, I hope you enjoyed yourself fishing with us for the first time.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
You know, I hope you come back and fish. I know, obviously, the next event we got on the docket is ways away. Even though it's 5 rivers, all 5 of those rivers are down in southwestern to south central Virginia. So, that would be the
I wish I would have fished the Shenandoah ones. I was busy, you know, get busy, but when I can break away.
I mean, and you know what though, that one, I'm gonna look forward to that one next year because we just had wonk weather that weekend. Saturday, you know, I mean, Shane, you won on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Saturday was crazy. Like it just high water came in, kind of blew things out, you know, and you know, not unexpected. We kind of knew, but we got a lot more rain in on that Friday night, and kind of like it changed the fishery for everybody. So it wasn't as fun as an event that I think it should have, you know, that could have been. There were still a lot of fish caught, but you know, a lot of people on Sunday didn't even fish because the river just rose so fast. They just opted to, for safety reasons, they didn't even fish. Shane, I know you were further up north, you know, but a lot of the guys on the South Fork were just like, yeah, it's a no-go for me. I'm not gonna risk it. So hopefully we'll get back. Hopefully we'll get back there next year, or maybe fish it twice next year, different seasons at different times of the year. Because like you said, there's big fish in there, man. There's certainly really quality smallmouth.
There's some really big fish in
there. And not everybody, and it's, you know, and not everybody fishes it. Like, it's like, I know people know the Shenandoah, but it's like a lot of tournament trails, you know, at least in the kayak space, it doesn't get the recognition it deserves because people don't fish it for tournaments. You know, like, I mean, that people who aren't local to Virginia like us, more or less, we know about it. If you grew up here, you obviously know about it. But if you're from out of state, most people aren't familiar with it at all. And I think that's pretty much a product of, you know, no tournaments, whereas everybody knows Susquehanna, right? National events there every year. You know, that draw attention to it.
If they held a big tournament on that river though, with like a lot of different kayak, like 100 people or something, I don't know that it would fish as well, just because it's a smaller, you know, it is a smaller river, so it'd probably get a little
you probably have to have all 3 stems open, like you
definitely
I mean, and you know, I mean, I like when Hobie came to New River, I was just kind of like, I was like, oh, because they closed the Virginia water. It was only to like the West Virginia line. It was West Virginia line downriver to like Beckley. Like it wasn't like Parrott and Radford and McCoy Falls and Burton and all that, Pembroke and Ripplemead. None of that was even in bounds in the Hobie event. And then when everybody kind of like characterized that event as kind of being like a dud for like Hobie, I was just kind of like, well, you didn't like schedule the best water. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just like anyone who around where we live knows that's not. I mean, West Virginia is a good section. I mean, obviously in the New River, but I don't think it's nearly as good as the section in Virginia. And Hobie just didn't schedule that part of the river, and I think it hurt him. I mean, I think guys still dropped like 90 inches. You know what I mean? But I think some of those guys would have done crazy in the Virginia section. They probably would have pushed 95 to like 98 in the Virginia section during that time when they came. But because I think Thomas Cox in our series, he put back to back like 92s or 93s. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see. I don't think when those schedules will drop for next year. But we know Kayak Adventure Series is coming to Virginia for down south, Staunton River, Roanoke River, and all that along the North Carolina, Virginia line. Hopefully we'll see, hopefully we'll see like Hobie or Bass come back to, I don't think Bass has I think the closest Bass has ever come to us is the Upper Bay back in 2021, the one Mike Iaconelli won. Bass just really, hopefully Bass comes over. They haven't come to Virginia or North Carolina. Definitely haven't come to West Virginia or Maryland other than Upper Bay. There's just so much that they could pick, they could choose from. Even if it's a lake. I mean, no matter me, I'd just rather have them come, even if they pick Smith Mountain Lake or Lake Anna or someplace like that, it's okay. Like, I prefer them picking a smallmouth river, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But you guys got anything else?
I'm good.
Y'all good? Anything I want to talk about? I'm gonna get with you guys. I'll text you guys up. I'm going down, like I said earlier today. I'm in the cast. I'm going down to Richmond for the BFL event on the James River, which is Saturday. But I'll be back Sunday, and I'll probably hit you guys up and meet you guys. Whenever it's convenient for you, wherever, Point of Rocks, wherever. It don't matter to me. It's all the same distance. Catch up with you guys to get you guys some of your prize pack stuff. Those payouts should drop tonight. If you don't message me in the morning, they're in the queue. PayPal's wonk, but I mean they're in the queue, so you should get your payouts tonight.
Okay.
Or first thing in the morning when you guys wake up, they'll be in your queue. And then we'll just get together and hook you guys up. Clark, you got a bunch of stuff from the new chaser side, so you got a bunch of stuff from the supporting partners, including your hard turn swim bait.
I'm excited for that.
You also got the prize pack for closest catch to the base camp. And when I saw that come in, I was like trying to like look from on top of the mountain, like where you were. Like I was like trying to see if I could see you down on the river, because I was like, wait a second, that's literally like right below me from when I was scoring fish. I was like, so I ran out, freaking like looked at I couldn't see it because of the trees and stuff like that, but I was like, literally, that was the closest bass. And then John Beverly caught the furthest bass way downriver. I mean, I think he caught it at the boat ramp that was at the end of the out of bounds area, way downriver. So that he was the furthest from Harpers Ferry. And Clark, your 18 was the closest to.
I was wondering which fish it was.
Yeah, it was an 18. So it was like
good one.
Yeah, and it was funny because I came down. Thomas had texted me, and because he needed to get a ride back, because he down river and he got out right there at base camp at the campground, and it's so funny. And I'd already scored fish in that area. I already scored your fish, and I was kind of like, and then when he texted me and said, "Hey, I'm going to come down that way. I'll probably be down there like an hour plus," and I was like, he's going to be rolling right through that same section. I was like, and I was just like, he's not going to be there. Like, because I was figuring he'd come under the bridge, come down there, he'd catch some fish, and he'd be like, all right, I'm gonna keep fishing. But sure enough, I came down the hill, from up top, and there he was sitting at the boat ramp submitting his fish. And he was done a little early. I think it was like 3:40 or something. It was early.
Okay.
And he was done fishing, and I was just like, I was like, okay. But yeah, that was kind of funny to see it, and I didn't even know if you knew that's where we were. But
I think Shane told me y'all were over there or something.
Yeah. I mean, only a few people launched from right there. I only use that ramp. I only use that, and I should use it more. I talk to the folks there, like, because I only use it when I stay there. Like, if I'm gonna do a long float, I'll come in there, and we'll come in there, and we'll stay the night, and then float all the way down. Sometimes we'll go from there all the way down to like Lander, or all the way down to like Point of Rocks, and just like
that's why
or the aqueduct at Monocacy or something. And it'd be like 13, 14 hours, right? Like, it's crazy. But I never, that's really the only time I use that launch. You know what I mean? It's a great launch. I mean, it's a great little launch to fish that area. Obviously if you're staying there, and it's not real expensive to pitch a tent there, and they're good people. But yeah, so a couple guys just got up and launched right from there, and then fished down towards like Brunswick and I guess Brunswick and Lander, and finished up at Lander. Which is a good stretch. I mean, it's that's one of those stretches that's like that Knoxville, Brunswick. That's a stretch where, like we talked about, where like when they're there, and when they're not, it's a ghost town. Like, and I've never been able to explain it. Because I don't think they move above. I don't think they move above Harpers. Like, they don't move above Dargan's. Like, it's like, and then. It just seems like, I don't know, like where they're moving to in that stretch. But there are times when, that they're there. Really, really good density there. And then there are other times.
I mean, it can be super good, or it can be, like you said, it can be like, where did they go? I've had it before. I've had just fun fishing. I've had like 90-inch days in that stretch from Brunswick to Lander. I caught like a 21 that day or something. And then you can go out there like 2 weeks later and it's like you fish the same stuff and you don't even see a fish. And you just feel like you wasted a day.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, especially in the summertime. I love that stretch from because I like to finish above. I mean, sometimes I'll go down to Point of Rocks because it's once you make that commitment below Landers, you're done. Like, you're not, unless you got a motor. But even then, sometimes it doesn't matter. Your motor doesn't help you because the water is what it is. It's so shallow and you're screwed. So once you get below that bend, but I like to go like Brunswick to Lander in the favorite times on the Virginia side. There's just deeper water over there. Like, I mean, and in that time of year, they're moving from summer pool to like deeper water, late September, October, November. And that's one of those areas where it's like clockwork. You got to kind of check it. But if you keep checking it, like in late September, October, eventually they're going to be there. And that's where my citation.
Yeah, it just gets hard. It gets hard to fish at some. Like we fish out of a jet boat in the winter too, and it's just like that area gets so pounded that a lot of times the last couple of years I just fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the few areas that's got that deeper, and locals know it. Most people know it. I'm not sharing anything that most people don't know. That. And when the water's up, and it's usually up, like it's usually it's usually a lot more up than it is right now, right? Like it's usually like 4 feet. Something, Edwards Ferry can be 8 feet in October, down below, and like right now today it's 2.2 feet. That's like. I mean, that's crazy levels for Edwards Ferry. Usually the deepest area, in that stretch. But in the fall, Edwards Ferry is like 8 feet, and then up there on that opposite side is like 5 feet or 6 feet. It's deeper water. They'll move up in there. But right now I'm gonna go hopefully get out early in the week. Maybe I'll meet you guys up early in the week after I get done fishing. Because I think if this rain moves in this weekend. I think the water temperature is coming down too. So, like, I think if that rain moves in this weekend, we're going to see a little bit more, than we saw this last week. Yeah. All right, Shane, you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
You're good. All right, man. Like I said, I'll touch base with you guys early in the week. I appreciate you guys coming on. Congratulations. Clark, welcome to the series. I hope you'll come back, fish with us, fish with Shane in the team event, any other team events we got coming up. Or enter. I don't know if you've entered the summer chase or not, but if you enter that summer chase event, you log that citation, then that's going to gain you entry into our Big Hammers Cup event this fall. And that event is for all the people that call it a citation. And I think that event's going to be killer.
Where's that event at?
Well, you know what? That's interesting you say that. We have not decided yet. We haven't even decided the mechanism. I think what we're going to do is just kind of put a consensus of everybody, put them all on a wheel, and then spin the wheel to pick exactly where it's going to be. Obviously, I know guys want it to be the New River. And obviously, I know guys want it to be like Shannon. Everyone has their favorite spot. Yeah. But it is a fall event. And so, I mean, it's going to be in October. And then
all right.
Virginia's last year, the Virginia Bass Nation Championship for the kayak division was on Smith Mountain Lake, and I think it was October. So I want to schedule it around because I know, including you guys, are eligible to fish that bass. Why am I losing my mind for a second? What it's called? Anyway, it's Bass Nation kayak division for Virginia. If you finish in the top 10 in one of our events, you have to be a Bass Nation member and obviously a Bass member, but you qualify for that event. So you can pay your entry fee and fish in that event wherever that event is going to be this year in Virginia. They haven't announced where it's going to be, but last year it was at Smith Mountain Lake. I didn't like that. I don't, obviously I'm not a lake guy, but largemouth guys tend to have a little more pull. But with the amount of people that we have in our series that actually finished in the top 10, have actually scored some citations, and hopefully we get enough people on the Bass Nation rolls, we might be able to play some influence on scheduling a Smallie River for the Bass Nation Championship. But our Hammers Cup, we'll pick it. We'll decide. I mean, that was just one option, is to put all the rivers on a spin wheel and spin it live. Or maybe we'll just take a poll and let the community pick. Let the community pick on where they want to be. I mean, again, it's going to be October, so that pretty much sets up pretty good for, three rivers that I can think of. And then the other suggestion was to do it on a river that we have fished. So that could be Susquehanna, right? Could be the Susquehanna River, or that could be a river event, but it could be something different, So maybe we'll run a poll and kind of gauge the community in terms of what they want. I just know I think it's going to, based on last fall's monthly event in September, October, and November, we had more citations caught in those monthlies than we've had all this year, So it's like, I just think that no matter where we pick, if we pick the right spot, it's going to be pretty epic. Because everybody fishing that event has caught citations before. So, I mean, they're pretty dialed in, to catching smallmouth. So that's going to be a really great event. But we'll probably in September, we'll probably do it in after Labor Day, right after summer chase ends. I think we have one more event after Labor Day for people to qualify for it. And then we'll release the actual river and then the date of it, so we could give a lot of people a lot of time, to pre-fish it or experience it if they've never fished it before. Just, so there's no too much of an advantage if it happens to be the New River, for those guys. But we'll see how it goes. All right, guys.
All right,
man. I appreciate you guys coming on. And we'll see you. I'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.